Global Navigator Virtual Fair.
This meeting is being recorded.
So first things first, before I forget, the meeting is being recorded and is going to be on our YouTube channel. So if any of you are uncomfortable with your face appearing on that, go ahead and cut your camera now. That way, you won't see that later on and be kind of surprised. I am joined today by two HSSA alumna, Kirsten Metzler and Sophia Futang, who were with us in Toulouse this past summer. I have a brief presentation to go over to give you an overview of the programs in Toulouse. I won't be going into really specific details, just because we're still very far out from program start. And then I will let Sophia and Kirsten share with you what their experiences were like, what they took away from the summer, and then we'll have time for questions and answers, obviously. My colleague Kim, who's based in the US, she's present. She'll be looking out for the waiting room, or if anybody's got questions, you can put those into the chat. She'll be looking at that as we go along. So, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share my screen. Alors, super. Alors, donc, can everyone see my screen? Kirsten, I can only see you right now, so can you see my screen? Yeah,
I can see.
okay.
We can see your screen, yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, now it's in presentation mode for everyone?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. So today's presentation, this is Destination Toulouse, Toulouse, France. As I said, my name is Julia Coggins. I'm the Global Navigator Manager here in Toulouse, France. So I run the high school abroad program, which takes place during the school year. We have high schoolers who come for 3 months, 5 months, or 9 months, live with host families, go to French high schools. And then I also run the high school summer abroad program, which is our short-term 4-week programs or 3-week programs for this new engineering program that we'll be having this upcoming summer. Many of you maybe haven't heard of Toulouse or don't know much about Toulouse. I know I didn't know much about Toulouse before coming here for the first time. We are in the southwest of France, as you can see, close to the Atlantic, close to the Mediterranean, close to the Pyrenees, close to Spain. We're really close to a whole lot of things. So just right off the bat to tell you what are some of the highlights about Toulouse, what are some of the reasons that should get you excited about coming to Toulouse, or maybe you're between, oh, do I want to go to Paris? Do I want to go to Toulouse? Would I rather go to Rennes? If I were to try to convince you, why would you want to come to Toulouse? The first thing that comes to mind for me is the cuisine of Southwestern France. I don't know if you guys know much about Southwestern France, but it's a bit different from maybe what a lot of people associate with France. We might often think of Paris, whereas Toulouse and the Southwest are quite different. We eat a lot of canard, so a lot of duck. We have a lot of duck-based dishes. We eat lots of foie gras. I'm sure you guys have maybe heard about foie gras. You've talked about it in French class, perhaps. The city's flower is la violette, so violets, and so we'll have little violet candies, or violet teas or violet honeys, things like that. So there's a really unique cuisine here that students are always pretty surprised to discover. Maybe Sophia and Kirsten will talk to you about that when they speak about their experiences. One of the things that I love about Toulouse, and I've been living here for about 8 years now, is that it's a city that is à taille humaine. So a human-sized city, as we would say in French. It's a very walkable city. We're the 4th largest city in France, so it's a big city with lots of things to offer, lots of cultural events, things going on, but at the same time, you don't feel like you're, just one of a million in this big city where nobody knows anybody, and you feel like you're just kind of drowning with the crowd, etc. So here it's really a smaller city. You might even feel like you're in a big town at some points. It's very walkable. There's a lot that you can do in Toulouse just by foot. Many times we'll say, oh, like, don't even bother taking the bus, you can just walk, it's quicker. And the public transportation system is also pretty easy, quite manageable. And again, I think Sophia and Kirsten will be able to talk about that in a bit. We have a unique architecture style here. You can see in this photo that in Toulouse, we're called La Ville Rose, so the pink city, because of all the brick we have. So again, if you've maybe been to Paris or you've been to Bordeaux, those are totally different architectural styles. Toulouse is really, really different. It's a very colorful city. So that's something that's really special about being here. And then as I was just mentioning before, we are really well situated. We're between the Atlantic Ocean, we're between the Mediterranean Sea, we're just north of the Pyrenees Mountains. So there are a lot of opportunities for outdoor activities, going to the sea or going to the ocean, you know, going swimming, surfing, hiking, doing things like zip lines. Those kinds of activities are really, really easy to do from Toulouse. And a lot of our host families may have second homes in these areas, or will like to take their students to one of these areas during the weekend. And we try to show our students these beautiful natural areas around Toulouse during our day trips and overnights. So what is in an HSSA program basically? So very generally, what's a typical week like? You're going to have 15 hours of your interactive language class. So if you're coming for the language and culture class, if you're coming for the engineering program, you're going to have about 15 hours of content class. Now, this is just specific to language and culture. The community conversations are what we call Ose le Français. Ose le Français literally means, you know, dare to speak French or dare the French. And those are activities that follow classes where we have students go right out into the community and try to apply what they just did in class that morning, but I'll talk about that in just a second. The afternoons are reserved for cultural activities. We try to have a variety of cultural activities. We know everybody's interested in something different. Everybody's got different priorities of things they want to see or things they want to do while we're here. So we try to have sports activities or cooking activities, and, you know, maybe classic going to museum kind of activities or things around the arts. So we really try to have a diverse offer of cultural activities. You may have a weekend excursion in a typical week. There will be 2 different outings during a program, whether it's the engineering or the language and cultural. There will be a day trip and then an overnight trip as well. Now, there's a lot that goes into the program. As we were saying, there are 15 hours a week. So, you know, good 3-hour chunks of class every morning. You've got Ose le Français if you're doing language and culture. You've got activities almost every afternoon. You're also going to have free time to explore and have fun and discover parts of the city, or discover, you know, activities, or discover cuisine with your friends. So don't worry, you will have some free time on program to do those things. And then if you're on the language and culture program, you can expect to have breakfast and dinner with your homestay, and then to have a lunch stipend for Monday through Friday. And the engineering program will probably work on a similar system where breakfast and dinner would be at the residence, and then there'd be a lunch stipend for afternoons. Alors, bien. Okay, so why will you love learning French here in France, here in Toulouse? Or, you know, learning engineering as well. We could also apply that to the engineering program. If you're on the language program, we're going to split you up into smaller groups by your level. So you'll take a stamp test before you come, and then based on everyone's level, we'll make smaller groups. And that way, you're really going to be able to maximize your learning by being in the right level, not something that's not too difficult or not too easy. For the engineering program, what I was just explaining at the very, very beginning of the program is that for the engineering program, there will be a functional French course. Now, maybe some of you who are interested in engineering, you've already got a French background. Maybe some of you have never really spoken or learned any French. The The objective of the course will be to give you the basic skills you're going to need to live in Toulouse for 3 weeks. So practical things like ordering at a restaurant or at a bakery, asking for directions, asking a question to the bus driver when you're using public transportation. And same thing for engineering. We'll have everyone take a language test at the beginning just to see what levels are like, and see if we need to make smaller groups or if everyone's got more or less the same level and we can have one big group. That'll really depend. Whether you're doing engineering or language and culture, you're going to have local, passionate instructors who love what they do, who love teaching, and are so excited to go on this adventure with you over the summer. I think that, again, Kirsten and Sophia will be able to touch on when they speak. The lesson plans, we try to coordinate with them as much as possible with the activities and the excursions. So maybe in your morning French class, you talk about music. Well, that week, we're going to try to have a musical activity in the afternoons, or maybe you'll talk about tourist attractions. Well, then we'll go see a tourist attraction and you'll be able to use the vocabulary you learned in class, applied to that attraction you're at. So it's really that connection between what you're doing in the classroom and then what you're doing in the community. And then for the language and culture program, only there's a language pledge. And we take that really seriously. That's something you'll sign at the beginning of the program during orientation. And it's really, we all, we're in orientation together, we're starting the program. And it kind of, everyone makes a promise to each other that we're going to do our best to stay in French as much as possible. Even when it's not easy, we're going to use different strategies to really push ourselves to speak French as much as possible. So you can know that the group is going to collectively really stick to that and do their best to speak French as much as possible. It's a 4-week program, so it goes by really, really fast. And that's why it's really important to take the language pledge seriously from the get-go, because if after 2.5, 3 weeks you say, okay, now I'm really going to start to speak French, you've lost out on a lot of really valuable time. So this is, again, specifically for language and culture, the Ose le Français, these community conversations. This is what I was saying about, you're going to try to apply whatever you learned in class that morning directly to the community, in the community. You have to think of them as their little challenges that your program leader is going to lead, going to chaperone. And the idea being that you've got this kind of structured practice time, but in an authentic context to use what you did in class. So an example that comes right to mind is, I think this is a level 3 activity. They learn about ordering in a restaurant the first week in class. Well, the Ose le Français that day is the program leader takes them to a restaurant or to a bakery and helps everyone order. So it's those kinds of activities. Okay, so just to give you a couple of examples of typical cultural activities that we do a pastry workshop. I think that's a big hit with our students, something that they remember at the end of the program, the pastry workshop we do. So you've got students who are making a fraisier, so kind of like a strawberry shortcake. That is something that engineering students would do as well. We also have, as I was saying, kind of typical classical activities like museum visits. There's a contemporary art museum that's really neat for students to visit. There's also a World War II and resistance movement museum in Toulouse that's really fascinating. We take students to the Cité de l'Espace. So it's a big museum all around aerospace. And that's an activity that even our language and culture students do. So there will be certain overlapping activities that engineering students will do. So for example, engineering students will definitely go to the Cité de l'Espace, but so will the LC students. We have dance and music workshops. So we'll do a hip hop workshop, then we'll do a traditional Occitan music and dance workshop as well. We've got a photo of our rugby practice where students, discover rugby. I think some rugby is played in some places in the US, but it's not as common as maybe football is. Whereas in France, it's pretty common. And in Toulouse, it's a really, really big sport. If anybody follows rugby, if anybody's interested in following rugby, you should know that the Toulouse team is really, really quite good. So for us, it was quite evident that we had to take our students to do a rugby activity. We'll also do fun outdoor things like canoeing. And again, that's another activity that both LC and engineering students will do. And then specific activities just for engineering students. There's a Let's Visit Airbus where you can observe the assembly line for the A380. Vol des Pionniers is in the Montaudran neighborhood where there used to be factories where we used to build airplanes in the beginning of the 20th century. So that's something you'll get to do while you're here. Sweet, okay. And then again, so for LC students, you'll be staying with homestays. That's a big, big part of the program. We have students live with our host families because that's really the best way to learn a language, to become familiar with a culture, to understand a culture better by having that daily contact. Our host families come in all shapes and sizes, all different walks of life. We've got host families where it's 2 parents and children and a dog and a picket fence. We've got host families where it's an older couple whose children have moved out, who are maybe in university or have got their own place. And that's why the parents have extra rooms in the apartment or in the house. It can be an older person who's got lots of time on their hands and wants to host students. Can really, again, as I say, all shapes and sizes, all walks of life. But what they all have in common is their passion for international exchange and their availability and their warmth that they're going to give to you while you're here as an exchange student. You'll have your room. You'll have 2 meals a day. So that we said earlier, breakfast and dinner Monday through Friday, 3 meals a day on the weekend. You can obviously enjoy Toulouse and go out for lunch or go out for dinner on the weekend. That's just something you need to let your host family know about. But we really encourage you to spend quality time with them in the evenings and on the weekends. Practice your French, ask them questions about them or about France, where they're from, what they like to do. That's going to allow you to get closer to the culture that you're here to discover. And then in host families, we ask them to have Wi-Fi. That's going to allow you to do your homework because it's a super fun program. You're going to do lots of things, canoe, play rugby, make pastries, but it is an academic program and you're still going to have homework to do. And then, so for engineering students, as I said earlier, you'll be in a residence that will probably work on the same system. So breakfast and dinner at the residence, lunch in the city during free time. Bien. Okay, and then before I let Kirsten and Sophia talk to you about their experiences, I just want to remind everyone that if you finish your application by December 1st, you can be entered into a raffle to win a free flight, which is pretty neat. If you apply through an alumni's referral link, you can save $200. If you've got questions regarding the application, please don't hesitate to reach out to our colleagues in the US at hsabroad@cai.org. Kim has already put in the chat the phone number and the email address that I just read out. And if you are not sure where exactly you want to apply, maybe some people here are dead set on coming to Toulouse, others are thinking, Toulouse, Paris, or maybe even go somewhere else. There's a general info session tomorrow, Wednesday, where there will be lots of different alumni from lots of different sites talking about their experiences and what programs were like. So if you're interested in that, you can also sign up for the general fair and learn about other programs. Voilà. So without further ado, I am going to let Kirsten and Sophia tell you about their experience in Toulouse. Kirsten, you're first on my screen, so why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Hi, do you have any questions for me to start that I can answer, or I can just share my experience?
Are most, can I ask a quick question? Are most students at what point in their high school in terms of, are they doing this after their freshman year, sophomore year? And then also,
So, yeah.
I had a question.
Okay.
The second question was that the aerospace engineering, it sounds like that's a new program. Is that what I'm understanding? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
And I would love to hear some thoughts about why that's been developed.
Go ahead, Kirsten, I'll let you answer the first question. So your
Okay.
friends on program, about how old were they?
So there was a variety of students. There was only a couple of us that were 15. I think there was 3 of us. I was a freshman. There was one girl, she was a freshman, but she was 14. And then there was plenty of students that were 16, 17, and 18. I think there was one student that was 18, but I'm not too sure if there were more. But there was a variety of freshmen, seniors, and sophomores and juniors.
Okay. Sophia, do you agree? Because Kirsten, you were first session, Sophia, you were second session. On your session, Sophia, was it about the same?
Yeah, so I went the summer of my junior year. I actually turned 17 when I was there with my host family. A lot of us were towards the 16, 17. It was generally like sophomores and up. There weren't a lot of freshmen. I was originally scheduled to go this summer of my sophomore year, but I'm actually glad that I did it my junior year. I got a chance to improve my language skills, and it's just easier to go and live by yourself, I think, when you're a little bit older.
Okay, yeah. Merci, les filles. Indeed, most of our students on the high school programs are about 16, 17, so they've finished sophomore or junior year. But again, the program is open to anyone who's finished as early as freshman. So if you're ready after freshman year, why not? You just might be one of the younger students in the group, that's all. And the second question was about why has the program been developed?
Yeah, the aerospace program.
Okay. I believe it's been developed because I don't live in the US anymore, so I don't have direct knowledge about what high schools are doing, what high schools are looking for. But I understand that there is a big interest in STEM programs, that there are more high schools offering STEM programs and STEM tracks. Toulouse is, and then it just made sense. So CIE realized that there was this interest for STEM directed programs, and they said, hey, we work in Toulouse. And it's because Toulouse is a big STEM hub, I guess you could call it. Airbus was founded here, their headquarters are here, their major offices are here. So it is a major capital for aerospace, aeronautical engineering. With that, we have lots of students in all sorts of engineering tracks. So it's a city that really revolves around that. And so we have different cultural activities, like I was saying, Cité de l'Espace, the Airbus assembly line, Aeroscopia, which is an aeronautical museum that has workshops. There's a lot we can offer students in Toulouse because that industry is so present here.
But during the 15-hour classes, it will be classes or it will be visits?
So there's going to be classes, like traditional in a classroom classes with a teacher, but there will definitely be certain visits and certain workshops that go along with a visit, certain activities that will count towards class time.
Okay, then during the free time, Sophia and Kirsten, did you just do homework, or could you, I don't know, discover a cooking class and sign up for a cooking class of 2 hours? I mean, what did y'all do during your free time?
So on the school days, it really depended on how long our cultural activity lasted. I think there was 2 days that we had an off day and we didn't have a cultural activity, so we could just right after lunch walk around the city and explore anything we wanted to. But for free time, in total, all the free time that we got a 20-minute break around 10:30 a.m. for the language classes to go. Most students walked to a cafe that was next to the school, and so we had that break. And then we had a lunch break, which varied on day to day. it can last up to 2 hours, or it can be 30 minutes, depending on the cultural activity that you're signed up for and the time it starts. And after the cultural activity, if it's not too late, then you can explore the city. And then it also really depends on how far away your homestay is, because you do have to be aware of the transportation time, because there's certain trains that left at a certain time. And so you had to be at the train station at a certain time so you could be home before curfew. And so most days for me, I did get a couple hours after a cultural activity, or I would have an extra long lunch. And so I would just grab a quick snack and just spend most of my time walking around the city. And so I did spend a lot of time shopping because there was summer sales going on in Toulouse, the solds. And so those are great. Or I just like to walk around and explore the river or over the bridge, or look at historic churches over there, because those were beautiful.
Sophia, what about you?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think the lunch breaks were a really great opportunity to explore food-wise because you have to eat. But there's like a 1 to 2 hour break, and Toulouse is actually a very urban city. I think partly because of Aerobus, but there's a lot of restaurants there that you can go and visit. There were some favorite bakeries that we had that we would stop by in the morning, but my friends and I tried to hit a different restaurant or a different place to eat every day. So that was pretty incredible. And then I think part of this is just your eaux de français. Like when you have to go and do your homework, part of that assignment is actually to explore the city. So I really took advantage of that, and I went to all of the museums that I could and all of the different bakeries, and I also got my homework done. So I did spend a fair amount of time doing my homework after class, but it's not as if you're just sitting down and working on it. It's very active. You get to go and explore the city, and also kind of still with that guide that the class provides you. I lived an hour and a half commute away from the city. So like Kirsten said, I had to catch the train fairly early, but my host family actually took me places on the weekends or after school. And I know other people who lived in my town who would take the train back into the city on weekends. So there's so much opportunity to explore. There's not going to be a shortage of free time.
Okay. And
then also,
thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, also for the homework, I did, for me personally, in my class with my teacher that I had, we had a lot of opportunities to work on our homework in class because she helped us work through the projects, because we had a weekly presentation that we had to do, and that's what the homework was. And so the lessons that we learned in class was to prepare us for that presentation. And so most of the work that we did in class, she encouraged us and helped us prepare our presentations, and that was our homework.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies. Julia, one last question. I understand that everything is still being drafted and built. This residence, is this something that will be in town or will be far away? I mean, is there already some ideas where this could be?
Yeah, we've got a couple of ideas that we're, a couple of different residences that we're looking at, that we're weighing the pros and cons of. The residents, they're going to be either in Toulouse or like right on the city limit. Whereas host families, they can be in the heart of downtown, just like in both Kirsten and Sophia's cases, they were outside Toulouse in smaller towns. But a residence hall wouldn't be that far out. A residence hall, it's either going to be downtown or maybe in like kind of an exterior neighborhood of Toulouse though.
So a kid that is doing engineering and wants to still develop his French can do like the girls did, just go out and start walking the city and going to restaurants and discovering things.
Oui, tout à fait. Yep. So they'll also have free time where they can go out and about, go order coffee, go to a museum, practice their French, etc. Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. Thank
Julia,
you.
if I can perhaps hook an
Go ahead.
anecdote onto the end of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a day when we had a really long lunch period. It was about 2.5 hours. And I went into a cafe and I did my homework assignment. I did my Eaux de Français, which was to ask about somebody else's experience if they'd ever traveled abroad. And I stumbled upon this cafe that was run by a mother and her daughter. And I just started by asking them if, I could ask them a couple questions if they had the time. I was an exchange student. I was wanting to improve my French. And we actually became pretty great friends. They sat down with me. We were talking about their experiences. It was the mother's birthday, so I brought them flowers the next day. But every time I would drop in there, I would have a little conversation. So I think it's safe to say that a lot of the locals in Toulouse are also just really open to forming relationships and being really friendly and open to non-native speakers. I think wherever your son goes, he will be engaged.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have to leave, but your question, your answers were wonderful. I think it's much clearer now. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Karina.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We and Sophia, you touch on something really special about Toulouse. What I was saying earlier, that Toulouse, it's a city à taille humaine, so like a manageable kind of human-sized city. It's not Paris, it's not a big, metropolitan city. And so there is kind of that big town feel where, people that you see every day on your walk to class or on your walk to work, you might say hi, and you get your routines of stopping in a cafe, and people they're very friendly in Toulouse. They're very friendly.
Yes. I would like to agree with both you and Sophia said. The French people in the southern city of Toulouse are very friendly. And also I noticed that area, because I also traveled to Paris right after the program ended. And so I noticed that southern France and Toulouse are just so much more relaxed. And so the people there are a lot more friendly, and it's a lot more of a hometown feel.
Oui. Exact. D'autres questions? Any other questions?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I have a couple of quick questions. With respect, my daughter actually did the Paris summer study abroad back in 2019. Okay. My son's interested in the engineering program. The residence hall, I'm assuming there's going to be an advisor that lives there with the kids for the whole 3 weeks. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. As far as like the meals, he has a food allergy, so I'm not sure how does that kind of get handled by CIEE. I'm not sure how that works.
That's something that he'll need to put in his application. It's important that goes in the application so we can have that. And if it's an allergy, we'll ask the residence hall to take that into account. So to make sure that that allergen, whatever it is not in food, or it's something that he can avoid easily if it's like a buffet breakfast. So it's just something that needs to be in his application.
Okay. Thank you.
Avec plaisir. Any other questions about Toulouse specifically, or about the program? Now, I realize we have a couple engineering families. Are there any language and culture students or language and culture families on the call? Oh, 0? Okay, well, just in case, Kirsten and Sophia, could you speak briefly about the homestay experience, what that was like, what you walked away with from living with a host family for 4 weeks?
I can share about that. It was the part of my experience that I think most marked me was the people that I stayed with while I was abroad. We still keep in touch to this day. They actually just WhatsApped me pictures of their kids. I had 2 younger host brothers, a host father and a host mother. We lived in Montesh. It's about an hour and a half away from Toulouse. But we would eat dinner every night. They had a pool, which was very helpful during the heat wave. But my focus there was to really make sure that I spent as much time as possible with them when I was at home, which was pretty frequently. The commute was long, so I didn't stay in the city very late. But we actually became so close to, they invited me to travel to Paris with them at the end of the program. And so it's a relationship that I think will legitimately follow me for the rest of my life. And it drastically improved my French. For all the engineering families on here, my host father worked for Airbus. And so actually some of the conversations we had, we would have breakfast together every morning. And so we would talk from like the magazines that I found about fashion to actually, I remember distinctly discussing blockchains in French. So really it's just everyday conversation or coming home and talking with my 6 and 14-year-old brothers and just seeing the different levels of language, the different like colloquialisms. It was a really impactful part of my experience.
Super. Merci, Sophia.
Yes. So I had 2 host families, and the host families that you can get, they definitely vary. You can always put in your application anything you're uncomfortable with if you not comfortable for religious reasons at all, like staying with like, oh, males in the house, for example. So I had 2 host families. My first host family, I had 2 host sisters. One of them was 13 and the other one was 18. And I had a host mom, and they had a couple pets, and they were very nice, and they took me on a weekend, a one-day outing to the mountains, and we went to a lake, and they took me to this little historic mountain town, really church up there, and so we just walked around there. And then my second host family, which when for students, because I know there was a couple other students who had to be switched host families or had to have be put in like a temporary housing placement for reasons. Like CIEE, they organize it very well, and so you don't have to worry about any of that because it all will be organized for you, and so it's not very stressful. But my second host family, they were also very kind. It was a daughter, I think she was 12, and then just a mother, and they had one dog, and he was adorable. He was so fluffy. But my second host family, I got really close to them because I ended up living with them for a longer period of time, and I ended up staying with them for the last bit of my program. And so they were so sweet, and they just included me into their community so well. And they introduced me to their friends and their family, and I went to them to their family events and their reunions, and they took me to this little community get together at this vineyard. And I remember when I went there, the person who owned the vineyard, he was like, "You're the first American here to visit my vineyard," and he was so excited, and I felt so special because I know my host mom was also very involved in her community. And I'm still in touch with her to this day, and she texts me and she'll tell me on WhatsApp, like, if you ever want to come back to Toulouse, if you ever want to visit, you can feel free and you can come visit and stay with me. And then while I was in Toulouse, my last day there, my sister, my biological sister from America, she flew over to Toulouse to pick me up because we were going to travel up to Paris afterwards. And so when I told my host mom that my sister was coming to Toulouse, she told me to not let my sister get a hotel, to invite her over to our house so she could stay with them. And so I think that was just such a nice offer. Like, she didn't even know my sister, and she invited her over.
Oui. Thank you, Kirsten. Yeah, they're very hospitable, that they really like to invite people into their home rather than, let someone pay for a hotel room. Super, merci beaucoup les filles. Just a few other details that come to mind that might interest you. Everyone will use public transportation on program for their commutes from either the homestay or the residence to the site where they have classes. But then also when we go on activities, we all take public transportation together. So we order the public transportation cards for everyone. So that's something that's, paid for by the program. Your meals are taken care of. So, breakfast and dinner, Monday through Friday, are either with your homestay or at your residence. And then, as I said, lunch stipend. So really what maybe a student would need to pay for out of their own pocket when they come on program, that's really going to be any extra money they're going to want to put into meals. Maybe they're going to want to have nicer lunches or fuller lunches. You might want to have like a coffee and pastry budget, because that might be something you like doing on your way to school, stopping and getting a croissant or a chocolatine. And then shopping money, that's up to each student to budget whatever they want for the program. If you think you're going to shop a lot, not shop that much. Kirsten mentioned the summer sales. So something to know that goes on over the summer. But so really the homestay, your public transportation card, and all of the activities and the day trips and the overnight trip are all paid for by the program. So the spending money that you're going to need to budget, that's really based on, what you're going to want to put maybe into your meals. If you're going to want to go out for dinner, maybe on the weekends with friends and not with your homestay, or are you going to want to go shopping, not go shopping? Or are you going to want to go to the movies on the weekend, that kind of thing. But a lot of those activities are quite affordable, especially for young people in France. That as long as you're under 26, things like going to museums and going to movies are really, really inexpensive. Once you hit 26 in a day, they're not as inexpensive as they were. So that's something just to have in mind. But if you've got more specific questions about, how to budget, reach out to us. Any other questions? No? Okay, well then in that case, thank you all very much for joining us in this virtual fair. Merci beaucoup to Sophia and Kirsten. Thank you so much to Sophia and Kirsten who were here, who shared their experiences with us. I hope that gave you some insight onto what a summer is really like for a student-owned program. And again, if you have more questions, reach out to hsabroad@cie.org. You also have the 866 number here in the chat. And I look forward to seeing some of you or some of your children on program this summer. Merci beaucoup et bonne soirée. Merci Sophia, merci Kirsten.